So in today's tutorial, I'm going to use Inkscape version 48 to show you how you can create a logo depicting a bending barbell as well as a city skyline in the background, along with some arching text that goes along the arch of the bending barbell. So the font I'm using in this tutorial is called Bebas, and I provided a link in the description. So if you don't have it installed already, go ahead and download and install that font before you open up Inkscape, and then we'll be good to get started. And just so you know, at any point in this tutorial, you can look down at the bottom left side of my screen over here and see exactly which keys I'm clicking. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up a new document and get started. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go to View, make sure you have Custom selected, and then we'll go to Zoom, View, Zoom, Zoom 1:1. Then we'll go to File, Document Properties. We'll uncheck these two boxes and close that out. And I'll come up here to this button that says Align and Distribute. We'll open that menu up and make sure you have Last Selected chosen from that drop down. And then we'll go over here to where it says Edit Objects, Colors, Gradients, and Stroke. We'll click on that to open up that menu. So the first thing we'll do is draw an oval. So we'll come over here to the Draw, Create Circles and Ellipses button. We'll click on that. And just click and drag on the canvas to create an oval. Sort of like that. Now let's turn that blue and let's come over here to opacity and let's slide that in half. Kind of like that. And we'll come back to our arrow, we'll click on that, and then we'll right click this and go to duplicate. And we'll turn that green and we'll lower this one step by clicking this button right here. That's going to lower that below the red, below the blue oval. And then while holding Control and Shift on the keyboard, click and drag one of these handles right here. And let's drag that out to about, right out to about there. Then what we'll do is we'll right click this and go to duplicate. And we'll turn that orange. And while holding the Control key on the keyboard, click and drag this over to the left, out to about here. And then we're going to lower that to the bottom. We're going to come to this button right here that says Lower Selection to the bottom. We'll click that. And then we'll go up to our magnifying glass. We'll click on this. And we're going to click and drag over this top portion right here just to zoom in on this. Okay? And then we can go to our Bezier pen. We're going to click on that. And we're going to come up to this green squiggly line that says Snap to Pads. We're going to turn that on. And come up here to the very top of this green oval and snap the cursor onto the top of it. And then click once. And then while holding Control on the keyboard, click and drag this all the way over to the other oval until it snaps onto the top of that one. Once it snaps onto that, click. And then you can let go of Control. And I'm using the wheel on my mouse to scroll down the view like this. So scroll all the way down to the bottom like this. And then while hold Control again to get that line going straight down. And bring that line down until it snaps onto the bottom over there. And click on that. And then while still holding Control, bring this all the way over to the right until it snaps onto there. And click on that. And then we can let go of Control. And again, using the wheel on the mouse, I'm scrolling all the way up. And bring this line right back up to the starting point and connect it together. Now let's press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. And let's go back to our arrow over here. And while holding Shift on the keyboard, click on that orange oval so you have them both selected. And we'll go to Path Union. Okay, and the next thing we'll do is we'll click and drag over this entire thing. We'll come up here to this squiggly line and turn that off. The Snap to Pads, we can turn that off now. So when you click and drag over this entire thing so you have it all selected, right click it and go to Duplicate. And let's go to Path, Union, and let's turn that black. And let's lower that to the bottom by clicking this button right here, Lower Selection to the bottom. And come up here to the Stroke Paint tab. Let's open that up. And let's click the blue button to turn the stroke on. And then we'll come over to Stroke Style, and we're going to give that a 25-point stroke, and we're going to see how that looks. So we're going to type in 25 and hit Enter. Okay, I'm going to want it a little thicker than that, so I'm going to try 30. Try 30 and hit Enter. Okay, that's good enough. And then where it says Join, let's give this a rounded join. And let's go to Path, Stroke to Path. Then we'll go to Path, Break Apart. Then we'll go to Path, Union. What we'll do next is we'll click on this green oval right here. And then while holding the Shift key on the keyboard, click on this orange oval. And we'll go to Path, Difference. Now let's come back up to the rectangles over here. Create rectangles and squares. Let's click on that. And let's click and drag and create a rectangle going over this orange shape, kind of like that. And once you've done that, come over to the Stroke Paint tab and click the X button to turn that off. Now let's go over to the arrow and click on that. You're going to want to make this rectangle about this tall, about this thick. And then we're going to right click it and duplicate it. And while holding Control on the keyboard, click and drag this one down to about here. And then you can let go of Control and take this bottom arrow right here. And let's click and drag that down to make this one a little thicker. And then while holding Shift on the keyboard, click on the rectangle on the top so you have them both selected. And let's go to Path, Union. And then while holding Shift, click on this orange crescent. And let's go to Path, Difference. And then let's hold Shift again on the keyboard and click on this black oval in the background. And we'll go to Path, Difference. Now let's take this blue oval right here. And let's right click that and go to Duplicate. And let's turn that green. And while holding Control and Shift on the keyboard, grab this bottom arrow right here and click and drag this into about there. Once you get it there, you can let go of everything. And then take this arrow right here, hold Control on the keyboard and just Control and grab this arrow right here and bring this down to about there. And then hold Shift on the keyboard and click on that blue oval and we'll go to Path, Difference. And then we'll hold Shift again and click on this black oval and we'll go to Path, Difference. So once you've created that, hold Control and Shift on the keyboard and grab this arrow right here. And let's click and drag this in. We're going to scale this down a little bit. And then we're going to right click this and go to Duplicate. And I'm going to turn that red. And while holding Control on the keyboard, click and drag this out to about there. And then we'll right click it and go to Duplicate again. We'll turn that green, and holding Control on the keyboard, we'll click and drag this out to about there, about the same distance. And then once you've done that, click and drag over all three of them. And in the Distribute menu, you're going to find the button that says Make Horizontal Gaps Between Objects Equal. We're going to click that, and that's going to make sure they're all spaced out evenly. And then we can click off of the graphic to deselect everything. And then let's click on this red one in the middle right here, and let's right click that and go to Duplicate. We'll go to Path, Break Apart, Path, Union, and then hold Shift and click on this black weight plate right there. And we'll go to Path, Difference. And we'll do the same thing with this green one. We'll take this green one, we'll right click it, and go to Duplicate. Let's go to Path, Break Apart, Path, Union, and then hold Shift and click on the red weight plate. And we'll go to Path, Difference. And once you get here, let's click and drag over all three of them. And let's go to Path, Union. Okay, so then we could hold Control and Shift and click and drag this in. We'll shrink this down a little bit. And we'll actually move this off to the top left. What we're going to do next is we're going to create another oval. Create circles, ellipses. We're going to click on that button. And we're going to make an oval kind of like this. About that big, I'd say. And come over here to where it says Stroke Paint. We're going to turn that on. And come up to Stroke Style. We're going to try a 30-point stroke and see how that works. That's a little too big. Let's try 20. Maybe 17. Alright, that should work. We'll do 17. And let's come back to the arrow over here. Let's click on that. Let's right click this and go to Duplicate. And let's hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this down out of the way. We're going to come back to that in a little while. In fact, we can go to Stroke Paint and we can turn the stroke off on that one for now. And then we'll click on this one and we'll go to Path, Stroke to Path. And what we're going to do now is we're going to grab these little weights right here and we're going to raise them to the top. We're going to click this button that says Raise Selection to the top. And click that. And let's turn this blue so we can differentiate between that and the oval. And what we're going to do is we're going to click this a second time to bring up our rotation handles. And we're just going to rotate this around right to about there. We want to put it up here. This oval, the line on this oval is going to be representing the bar. So try to measure it up so that this circle right here is going right through this line, if you know what I'm saying. And it's coming out the back end as well. So I'm going to tilt this a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to click this another time to bring up the scaling handles, and I'm going to hold Control and Shift, and I'm going to scale this down a little bit because it's a little big. Okay, so you want to have it about that size right there. And then you can right-click this and go to Duplicate. And come up here to where it says Flip Selected Objects Horizontally. We'll click that to flip it around the other way. And hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this over to the other side to about the same position. Right about there. And then we can hold Shift and click on the other one so you have both of them selected. And we'll go to Path, Union. And then while holding Shift on the keyboard, click on that oval. And you're going to want to center them up on the vertical axis. And then you could deselect everything with this button right here. Okay, so what we'll do next is we're going to take our magnifying glass and we're going to zoom in around the inside of these two inner plates right here. And we're going to go to our Bezier pen. We're going to click on that. And we're going to start our line at the top of this blue circle right here, right outside of this black border. And we're going to click once and bring this down to here and click again. And then we're going to go over here, do the same thing. Click over there, and then come up top and click over there. And then we can bring this out up to here, click, click, and connect it all together. So you have a shape like that. And then go back to the arrow and hold Shift on the keyboard and click on this this black oval right here. And let's go to Path, Intersection. And then we're going to press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. Okay, so what we'll do next is we're going to draw our skyline now. I've included a link in the description to where you can download this image I'm going to use. So go ahead and save that image into a folder where you can easily access it. And once you do that, we'll go to File, Import, and find that file. It's called skyline.png. Just double click that. You're going to want to embed it, so just click OK. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to draw an outline of this skyline. So what we could do is we could take our magnifying glass and zoom in to the left side of this right here. And take the arrow and come up to where this ruler is up here, like this these little guides, this little measuring tool. And you're going to see a little arrow hovering beneath the cursor. Click and drag on that to bring a guide down. We're going to this is a guide. It's a horizontal guide. We're going to bring this down to about where the buildings meet the water, right about there. And let's go to our Bezier pen and let's snap the cursor onto that guide we just created, right about where this building begins, right here. And snap it onto there and click. And I'm just going to do a very quick rudimentary outline of these buildings. If you want, you could take a little more time and be a little more precise and detailed with it. But for the sake of keeping this tutorial short and simple, I'm just going to go over this really quickly. I'm going to hold Control on the keyboard and bring this line straight up. I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag this over here, click, drag this up here, click. And the whole time I'm holding Control just so I can create straight lines. We'll do that, and then we'll do that. Maybe I'll bring that down to there. I'll bring this down to here. Bring that up and over and then down. Again, like I said, I'm just doing this really quick just to keep this tutorial simple and quick. I'll bring that up there. And at any point, once it's out of view, you can come down here and just scroll over like this. Bring that up to there. And you can do this with any skyline image, with any, it doesn't even have to be a skyline. You could do this with mountains or houses or whatever. It's actually a really neat little technique to make a vectorized silhouette of some kind of image. By the time this is done, this probably isn't going to look very much like the city that I'm tracing, but you'll get the idea just from looking at it. You'll be able to tell that it's a skyline. So I'm just gonna hold control. I'm up to here now. I'm gonna hold control and bring this all the way down to the guide that we created, and it's gonna snap onto there. I'm gonna click, and I'm gonna bring this over here and connect it back to the starting point. And press 1 on the keyboard to zoom out. I'm actually gonna turn that red. I'm gonna come up to the Stroke Paint tab. I'm gonna click the X button to turn that off. And then we can go back to our arrow, and we could take this image, move that out of the way, and press delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. We don't really need that anymore. And then you could take your cursor and hover it right over that guide. And once that guide turns red, you could press delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. So I'm going to take this skyline here. I'm actually going to drop the opacity in half. And I'm going to bring this up just above the barbell, maybe about there. And then I'm going to hold shift and click on the weight plates. And I'm going to center that up on the vertical axis. And I'm going to click off of the graphic to deselect everything. Actually, as you can see here, the skyline is intersecting with the blue plates. We don't want that. I want to make that a little smaller. So I'm going to click on this, hold Control and Shift, and I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so that it's not touching the plates. Down to about there. And then I'm actually going to lower it 1 step, and click that again, lower it 2 steps. Okay, so then it should be there. And then I'm going to click on this barbell right here. I'm going to right click that and go to duplicate. And I'm going to hold control and I'm going to move this up to about there. And then I'm going to hold shift and click on the skyline, and I'm going to go to path, difference, and then path, break apart. And then you can click off of the graphic to deselect everything, and click on this little red piece in the bottom here. You can drag this out of the way and press delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. And I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard to zoom out. I'm going to click and drag over all of this right here. I'm going to bring the opacity up, and I'm going to turn this black. Well, maybe the next color down from black, 90% gray. I think that looks better. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our text now. So we're going to take this oval and hold control and just click and drag this straight up. Make sure it's matched up to that bar right there. You don't want it any bigger. If you follow the directions I gave you, you just move it straight down out of the way. It should be lined up perfectly like that. So I'm actually just going to slide this out of the way. I'm going to come to our Create Text tool. Click on that, and I'm just going to click on the canvas down here. And just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to write City Barbell. Completely fictitious. Just for the sake of the tutorial. And I'll come up here to the View and select Font Family, Font Size button. We're going to click on that. I'm going to find that font we downloaded, the Bebus, there it is. Click Apply, and close that out. And we can come back to our arrow tool. And let's bring this up here. And let's try to hold Control and Shift on the keyboard and click and drag. Make this about that big. You want it to have a little bit of padding between the wording and the weight plates. So we want it to be about the same size, but we don't want it to be the same size like that, because then it's going to get lost in there. We want to make this a little smaller. We want to leave some padding in there. Okay. So then with this text selected, I'm going to hold Shift and click on this oval, and I'm going to go to Text, Put on Path, and we're going to end up with something like that. So then I'm going to click off of the graphic to deselect everything and click on just the wording right here, and then go to Create and Edit Text Objects. Click on that, and you're going to see this little cursor pop up. I'm just going to press back on the arrow keys to bring that cursor to the front. And this seems kind of counterintuitive because you're pressing back and the cursor appears to be going forward, but it's all relative to the position of the text. So once I get it there, I'm going to press the spacebar key. I'm going to hold it down actually just to bring this text around. Oops, went a little too far. You can press backspace if you end up going a little too far. I'm going to position it right about there. Then we'll go to Path, Object to Path. And then you can go to our arrow key. We could take this oval and we could press delete on the keyboard. We don't need that anymore. Then we could take this text. We'll turn it that same color the rest of the logo is, that 90% gray. And I'm going to hold Control on the keyboard and just bring this down a little bit. It's a little too close to the barbell for my liking. Maybe up to about there. And then we'll go back to the text tool. I'll click and I'll just write Jim. We'll take the Bebas font, click apply, close that out. We'll turn that 90% gray. We'll go back to the arrow and then hold shift and click on the barbell right here and center that up on the vertical axis and click off of the graphic to deselect everything. And then I'm going to click on just this word Jim. I'm going to hold Control and Shift and I'm going to scale this up to about there. And I'm going to bring that up to about there. And click and drag over the whole thing, group it together. We could scale it down or up or whatever you want to do. And there you have it. That's just a quick little exercise to show you how I go about drawing things like barbells and skylines in Inkscape and how you can go about arcing the text along with the shape. So if you have any questions, just let me know and I'll be glad to help you out. Thanks for watching.